is our project called Sliding Puzzle. This is basically where you just get on the website. This is the register and this is the login. Here we can probably just do this one first, and we can name it like Nick. And then password, you can name it just like 123. Register this account. Oh. So then we have Nick and Nick 123. And this is basically how it works. So this is our default landscape, which is Iron Man 1. And then basically how you start the game is just hit shuffle. And then you move for it to get in the correct spots. And then you do this till you get all of them into the same order, which should end at 15 right about here. And then that's where the game ends. And then depending on your score, you reach this one of these top 6s up here. So here, to not bore you, I'm going to just cheat real quick and just start a new game, and then it'll basically be just do this, and then do this, and then it'll say that we won. And the time is 3 seconds. The move is 2. And then it goes here, and then we see Nick, 3 seconds, 2 moves, and we're on the third base. And that's basically how the thing runs. I mean, we start right here, we just move, and then anyways, but we would have to shuffle the game when we first get on, and then move it to the correct spots, and then that's where the game ends, and then you get into one of the leaderboards. Here we can refresh the leaderboard, see if anyone beat us or made some changes to the leaderboard. Here we can just see different landscapes. This is the city skyline, the space galaxy, flower garden, and that's basically backgrounds where we can change and also move around. All pretty much the same. And then here we have our admin login, and then from there as well we have the same things. And then just admin, I kind of cheated in the past as well by just hitting doing this and then doing that when you first get on, because it says time 0 and then the admin on top, and then here then it pushes Nick down some, and then we go up here to our settings, and we see we can manage the users. We have the background images, and we can play game. We can play the game, like we'll just take us back over here. We see here that we have 8 total users, 35 games played, 140 seconds average time, and 38 average moves. Here we can see the loads. The background images, we can add and change some of these images if we want. We can disable them or delete them. And then here is the user management. You can change them, like as you can see, if I, let's say if Eve beat my score and I don't like Eve, I'll just delete Eve's score. Or let's say an offensive name or something like Bob, and then I would just change Bob's name to, let's say, look at the name, Tim, and update his user, and then his name would be changed to Tim. And it's updated successfully, and then this is 7 total users, basically, and change up some of the stats. But yeah, that's our game.
Hello, my name is Angel, and these are my teammates Osman Abdullahi and Tanaka Makuwaza, and this is our 15 puzzle project. So first, we have our extra feature number 1, which we chose to do login. This is the first screen that the players met with, and we handle this using PHP. When the user is trying to log in, we use the post global array to save their username and password. And if they try to submit any empty text fields, either username or password, then it'll show them an error message to saying please fill in all fields. If neither fields are empty, then it goes on to the else, um, and then we can check if it's a valid username or not. If it is a valid username, then they will be redirected to the game.php file. If not, then they'll be given another error message saying invalid username or password, and they won't be able to move on until they input a valid login. If they don't have a valid login, then they should create an account, which is what the code is showing right here. Again, we cover all possible cases. So like if any empty text fields are missing, there are any empty text fields, then they'll get an error message right here. Um, or if the password and confirmed password don't match, then they will also get that error saying that the passwords don't match. And we also added a simple requirement that the password must be at least 6 characters long. Then we can see on the rightmost screenshot right here, once they get valid credentials, then they can use those credentials to successfully log in. Then we are redirected to the game page where there are 2 possible roles that the user can be, a regular player or an admin. Regular players can only see this page with the current game info on the left, the game in the center, and the leaderboard on the right. One of the few options that regular players have is that they can change the background image of the puzzle through this selector box. To display the available background options on line 71 on the bottom code, then we can use the get available backgrounds function. This function returns an array of key value pairs with the info of the file name and the display name for all backgrounds, like in line 61 on the top, as we can see right here, which line 61 is just in case there's an error trying to retrieve those backgrounds from the database, so that it still returns an array and the user will still be able to use the default background. Because the function returns an array, then back in line 71, we can access the value of display name and get the value of the background through this for each loop. So then we can get the file name and display name. Another feature that the regular players have is to view their game history. The button for this is under the leaderboard on the right side. When the button gets clicked, this calls the show user history function. And in the first line of this try block on line 393 up here, we call to the get user history.php file, which will give us the history information, as we can see in the middle right here on line 20. This is what it will return. And after calling this happens after calling the get user game history here on line 19. In the get user game history function, we make an SQL query to select the appropriate game history info right here, where we select things like move and time seconds. Once we retrieve this user game history data, we parse the JSON response in line 399 so that our program can understand the data that is given. Then we have some error handling, and then in line 410, we verify if the user has played anything. So if the data doesn't exist, or if the data is just empty in length 0, then they should not have any data to display. So then the player should play a game before wanting to view their history. If else, then we should display the history that the data has given back from the database in this for each line in line 413. And then we have the admin role. The main functionality stays the same as the regular player, but we get one more green button on the top right here if the user is detected as to be an admin. When the admin button is clicked, we are redirected to the admin.php file as shown by this href. And then we get to the admin panel where we have lots more we can see and we can do. For example, there's the game stats, which just directly access the data in the database using the SQL queries, as we can see right here. And then above an example, displaying total users, which calls the get game statistics, which returns an array of key value pairs from the data in the database as shown in the return statement on the bottom left. So this is what it will be returning. The admin can also manage backgrounds by uploading more, disabling, and or deleting them. This is another one of this is a key feature that we included for our project. As stated, multiple backgrounds and at least 4. And then we have uploading backgrounds. When submitting the upload image form, there's a hidden input, as we can see here on line 239. This input sets the post action to upload image, because that's what the value is set here. And this allows for the switch case on the right to execute when it and call the handle image upload. So once the post action is set and that action is equal to upload image, this case is the one that's going to execute, and this will call the handle image upload. The handle image upload, this function does some basic error handling to make sure that the form submission didn't have empty fields or if the file was a correct type and size. Then we can save it to the database as shown in the try statement down below using this insert into query. The managing backgrounds feature allows the admin to preview the images, as we can see right here, toggle status between disable, enable, or also delete. And this uses the switch statement from before to toggle the status and delete the image, as we can see right here in these bottom cases. And lastly, the admin can manage user information. This is how we displayed our table and how it's created with its respective column names. To get user information, we call get all users to give all the user data from the database to the users variable. Then we access each individual info with the for each loop, which will display all relevant information about the user for all users that are available in that database. So each user is going to be printed their info right here.
So I'm going to talk about the gameplay background and how that all works. All game board elements are made from the JavaScript. The tile board is made as a 2D array, and each tile that's being created calls on the position tile function and the set tile background function, which are here in the create board function, to get their positions on the board. For the image to position the tiles to fill their respective spaces, we did the column and the row times the tile size and changed the style value for margin, because that would shift the tiles from their place when they are generated. So if a tile was supposed to be in spot 0, 0, then it will move away from the left margin at the left margin 0px and from the top 0px. But for a tile in the third row, fourth column, then it will move 3 times the size of a tile away from that same left margin, and it would get away from the top margin by 2 times the tile size. Now this is for positioning the tile over on this side, but the background has not been set. Now to position the background to the same position that the tile has been positioned, the values to position the background are opposite. We use the set tile background are opposite because it's not positioning based on the margin anymore, but rather just moving that background absolutely through the title.style.background position, as you can see here. In order to make it the opposite, we added a negative side to the original column and row numbers, and this keeps everything aligned in position as it should be. To assure that this puzzle is solvable after being shuffled, we performed random valid moves over and over again. Because these movements are still random, they simulate random board generations even though we don't randomly assign each tile a random space. In order for the user to clearly tell which tile is clickable and able to move, we gave the tile and border highlight and slight pop-up translation. In order to check if the tile is movable, we get the row and column positions of both the tile in question, aka the tile that was clicked, and the same for the empty position. If the difference between the row is 1 and the column difference is 0, that means they're in the same column and the empty position is 1 away from the tile clicked. The opposite would mean that they are in the same row and that the empty position is on a column next to the tile clicked. If any of these two cases is true, then is tile movable will return true in order to proceed with what should happen next. The move tile function takes care of actually moving the tile. We first get the position of the tile to be moved, then update that tile position to the empty space using this dot position tile. And now the newly moved tile space is the newest empty space. We increment the move counter and make sure that non-movable tiles don't have the movable class in their class list. And then for the check when method, this game goes on until all the tiles are back in their original position. Since this needs to be checked after every move, it is faster for the program to simply check if the empty position is in the bottom right corner and return false if so, rather than having to check if all the tiles are back in their original positions or not. Our second key feature was adding an end of game notification. We added a celebratory confetti rain after the player wins, as you can see in the window. And then the second extra feature was the leaderboard. And the first line, you can see this is the code for the leaderboard. We call it the get leaderboard PHP, which will give us the $leaderboard equals get leaderboard information. And after calling the get leaderboard function, in the get leaderboard function at the bottom, you see we make an SQL query to select the appropriate leaderboard info. Once we receive this leaderboard data, we parse the JSON response in line 350 so that our program can understand the data is given. We have some error handling, and you can see in line 360, we verify if there's any data in the leaderboard so far. If there is no data in the JSON response, or if it's a length 0, then no leaderboard chat should be displayed, rather a friendly invite to play and be the first on the leaderboard. Else, we should display that the leaderboard data that we receive from the database using the for each in line 365.